So I am going to hand you over to the, what's your title?
Vice President of Sam's Tours is fine.
Vice President of Sam's Tours in Palau. This is our absolutely favorite operation in Palau here with the team at Deep Blue. So he's going to take you away to Palau.
So, hi everybody. Once again, my name is Marc Bauman. I am not coming to you from Palau where I normally am. I was traveling when they closed down for COVID, so I am still out and about today. I want to start by first of all thanking Cheryl and the team at Deep Blue for having me today. It's fantastic. And then I also want to give our best and hopes and prayers to all the people on the front lines of this current crisis. And I do hope that all of you joining us today and your loved ones, your family and friends are safe and healthy. And before I get started, the last little bit, I want to give a shout out to my niece and nephew who have joined us today, Jackson and Georgia Hancock. So I'm excited to have you both on here, and I'm sorry that Uncle Mark couldn't come to see you during this trip to the U.S. So I'm going to do something a little different today. Most people talk about their properties, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to talk to you about legacy, and we're not going to talk about Sam so much today. We're going to talk about what is near and dear to all of us at Sam's Tours, which is conservation and how we save it for kids like my niece and nephew, Jackson and Georgia, your kids, your nieces and nephews, and the future generations. This is something very near and dear to us. So to start with, I'm going to show you a video about Palau so you kind of have an idea of what the backdrop is to all of this. So just give me a second here. And here we go.
Mark, is that a video? Mark?
Hold on a minute here.
There we go, great job.
So we're back on. I believe we are back on.
Yep, you're back
We're
on.
good.
Great, guys. So I want you guys to, as we go through this whole thing today, think about what you just saw in the backdrop. And Palau, you know, Palau is one of the rare, delicate places on the planet left. And we're going to talk about why, what makes it so special, and why I've called it my home for a lot of years. And I'm honored every day to be part of the success and to be able to show Palau. So I'm going to switch over to a bit of a PowerPoint here just for you. We'll finish up with a little bit of a new thing that we're doing in Palau that I think everybody would be interested to kind of tie this all together. And then I'll take a bunch of your questions and answers and all that, or try to give as many answers as I can to your questions, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to share this screen again. Hopefully I get it right this time, the first time. So hold on just a second. Carrie, does that come up?
Nope, I think you need to open it and then share your screen. For whatever reason, it's having a
Okay.
hard time.
Yeah, it's having a tough time doing that. It's okay here. There we go. Now?
Yep, great.
Perfect. All right, guys, so we're going to talk about Palau leading the way in conservation, and we're going to start off really quick with, you guys have seen a video, where is Palau, you know, what makes it so special, and all of these kind of good things. So I'm going to kind of put my point, I'm going to put my pointer on this thing right here. What you see in the red line there is the coral triangle. So everybody, I'm assuming, is pretty much aware of the coral triangle. It's the most biodiverse marine area on the planet, with more than 2,000 species of reef fish in that area. And this little area, if you can see my pointer, I'm not sure if it will show up on there, is Palau, this little ridge right here. And we sit just outside of the Palau, approximately 400 nautical miles. So we're very, very close. What makes Palau so special? Palau sits up on the Kyushu mountain ridge. And so this ridge it's quite unique. This ridge stretches all the way from Japan to Indonesia. And oddly enough, it was formed about 65 to 70 million years ago. And the interesting part about it is the only part of that mountain ridge that currently is above water is Palau. And so this is where all the deep trenches that we all are aware of and know about throughout the world, the Marianas Trench, the Yap Trench, the Palau Trench, they all sit along this ancient mountain ridge. A little bit of the geography and geology of the place. Palau is a volcanic rock and raised limestone grouping of islands. There's over 500 islands, and you have to understand, in Palauan culture, if there's a little tiny rock sitting above the water, they count that as an island. So what we may consider an island is a bit different. There's about 459 square kilometers of total land mass, which is quite small. If you actually condensed it down, it's very tiny. Oddly enough, there are 16 states within the republic. They modeled their country. They used to be a U.S. trust territory. So when they got their independence in 1994, they kind of modeled it very similarly after the United States. That's some good things with that, and then it creates some issues as well. And right now, there's about 21,000 people that live in and out of Palau. The census the last big census was done in 2005, and that was 1909. And right now, we get about 105 to 110,000 videos. So that's kind of held pretty much where it is. We did have a peak a couple years ago of about 150,000 guests, and we backed it back down in an effort to keep the conservation and keep everything in mind. There are 264 square kilometers of barrier reef that go all the way around, and you can kind of see the barrier reef here outlined on this stuff here. And it's one of the interesting things that makes Palau so interesting, because that inner lagoon area, this part here, which is quite a large area, is oftentimes as flat as a backyard swimming pool. I mean, it is there, unless the winds kick up or really heavy, it's very, very flat. And the deepest part of that inner lagoon is 40 meters. So it's all within recreational diving depths. And so all of the wrecks that you saw on the video, and we have 40 World War II wrecks in Palau, they are all 40 meters and above. And so they can be accessed by everybody with all different capabilities and ranging in certification levels. The lagoon area alone is 521 square kilometers. It's quite large. Now we get into what makes it actually really special. Sitting right outside of that coral triangle, we are fortunate in Palau to have about 1,500 species of reef fish. There's 400 species of coral, or 700 species of coral, and 400 species of sponge. Up to 30 species of cetacean resident and visitors to Palauan waters. Just to give you kind of an idea for those of you who, not to take anything away from the Caribbean, there's some tremendous diving down there, but in the whole of the Caribbean, you have 500 species of reef fish in total. So we have 3 times the amount of reef fish just in Palau. We have 11 species of dolphin and 15 species of whale that are either resident or visitors to Palauan waters. We have 10 species of seagrass, and we also have around 300 or so endangered dugongs. They're an endangered species in the world, and they are they are a living fossil. And the truth of it is they're highly protected in Palau. You're not allowed around them by a boat. If one happens upon you, it's great, but we protect them quite a bit. Palau also has a lot of endemic species, which is one of the reasons why we're doing so much science in Palau, because we're finding new species all the time. There are 8 endemic reef fish to Palau. We are describing more and more every year. We found 2 more in a recent dive with National Geographic at a depth of over 100 meters that they had not found before. Obviously, there's the Palau Nautilus, which used to be an actual dive that people would do. They would, in the older days, they would send down these gigantic, for all intents and purposes, like a crate, and they would bring them up slowly to the surface so people could see them. We stopped that practice at Sam's Tours a long time ago in an effort to protect the species. It's just something we don't subscribe to. Also, this is a really interesting one at the bottom. And the Protoengia palau was found in the back of a cave, and we do have caves in Palau as well. Several years ago, they did some DNA testing on this particular eel, and it is actually the mother of all eels found worldwide. So this eel is still in Palau. We still have them. They are rare to sight when we're doing some cave dives and things. You can see them, but they are rare. We do know some places where they tend to be. They're completely blind, and just an amazing creature to see. Let's talk about a little bit about why and what makes this island chain so special, man. I mean, like, what is it? What is what is all of the fanfare and the fame stuff that comes with Palau? We were fortunate enough to be part of a program with NOAA in 2013. So oddly enough, up until 2013, Palau was not ever mapped. They had ideas. We knew the Palau Trench was relatively close, but we didn't really have an idea what it was. We spent time with NOAA for 60 days. We side scanned, sonared, and mapped the entire sea floor with our scientific team at Sam's Tours as part of that on a NOAA vessel. And we used a lot of multi-beam technology. And what you see there is the green area is the Palauan Islands. The white area is the ridge by which it sits on. And you have all of the purple area at the bottom. So this was not known up until 2013, but the purple area, which is the deepest area on this map you're looking at, is 10,000 meters deep. That basically puts it at about 33,000 feet. It was originally thought to be about 6,500 meters deep, quite a bit shallower earlier in 1997 when they first described it. So just to give you an idea, in the Palau Trench alone, you could put Mount Everest in there, and you would still have over a mile to go to the surface of water. Okay, let's contrast that a little bit with what the trench that everybody knows, the Marianas Trench. which is the deepest trench on the planet. If you guys will remember, James Cameron did the Challenger Deep project there. The Marianas Trench is about 36,000 feet deep. So Palau Trench is not much shallower. It's very, very close. But there's some really distinct differences. The Marianas Trench, which is off the coast of Guam, sits 200 nautical miles away from Guam. So you have to have when James Cameron did his dive there, it took a bunch of support ships, a bunch of yachts. They were out there for many, many days to get this thing done. The Palau Trench sits 8 nautical miles off of the east coast of Palau. So basically, if James Cameron had come there to do his Challenger Deep, we could have literally taken him out in one of our dive boats, done the dive, come back and had a beer by the end of the day. It's quite an amazing thing. And this is also one of the main reasons why Palau is what it is. We've learned this just in the last 6 or 7 years. The upwelling that comes from the nutrient-rich waters of this depth is what's feeding the dive sites that are on the west side, which is why we have the abundance of life that we have. One of the things that has come in the last, well, we've known about the aggregations for many years, but one of the things that's come out of this whole find is Palau is a hotbed for these spawning aggregations. We have right now, we have 13 marine biologists that work on staff with SAM's tours. They are your dive guides oftentimes. We do programs with university programs all over the world. So people that are either want to be a marine scientist and come work for us for a bit, or they're an undergrad, they're finished their undergrad and they come to us for a couple years in between doing their masters and then in between their PhD as well. So oftentimes when you're on a boat and with Sam's Tours, you will have a marine scientist and also our local guides who know Palau better than anything can talk about this stuff like you wouldn't believe. We believe it's part of the experience that we give to everyone. So there's over 20 documented resident and transient spawning aggregations in Palau. I mean, you think about that. You don't often get to see these things. People talk about them. We know fish spawn, but you don't actually get to see them. So one of the world's top scientists, Dr. Patrick Cullen, we work very closely with him. He's been studying aggregations in Palau for over 35 years. Our unique expedition side of the house, which is part of Sam's Tours, we study these and collaborate them with Dr. Cullen to try to find out. And we have documented in the last couple of years at least 2 new aggregations in Palau that were never known before. One of those, which you guys can all see, by the way, this is the kind of the cool thing. What I'm showing you is not just to show you why to come to Palau, but we actually can take you out to see these things. We limit the amount of guests that we do. We only take 7 people at a time. Sometimes it will go up to 10 if we have a group, but we try to limit it because it is a natural spawning event. We don't want to upset the balance of nature. So this is the bumphead parrotfish. You got to see a little bit of it in the video. And Palau right now has the largest population per square kilometer throughout their known range, meaning in the world. Ours right now is estimated to be about 3,000 individuals that show up every month on the new moon, the 4 days before the new moon starts to aggregate and then spawn. There are only 2 documented spawning aggregations throughout their known range of this size, and it's Palau and Wake Atoll. Obviously, Wake Atoll is a bit of a challenge to get to. Palau and the ladies at Deep Blue can get you guys set up to come out anytime you want. It is a protected species in Palau since 1994, along with the Napoleon wrasse. There was recently, some people may have seen, there was recently some stuff out where some of our politicians were trying to open up a small season for locals only. That was pushed back. It never got any legs. A lot of legs because they had brought it up, were talked about, but it never actually went anywhere. Whoops, hold on a second. The second one we're going to talk about a little bit is the red snapper spawning. And red snappers are pretty cool fish, man. They live to be up to 50, 56, 55 years old, 56 years old. They can be up to little shy of 3 feet in length at the biggest, and they can weigh up to 12.5 kilos. There's maybe 10,000 fish 10,000 at the smaller aggregation, and we have upwards of 20 to 25,000 fish at the. There's 2 aggregations of red snappers that we have, and what's really cool about this particular dive and this aggregation is if you guys are into big sharks, if you're into big fish, this is one of the ones to go to. We have bull sharks and oceanic blacktips that feed on this mass, very similar to what you would see in the sardine runs in South Africa, with just fish that happen to be a lot larger. So it's quite a sight to see. Give you a little bit of the mass. The second one, the one that we probably we get the most asks about, and the one that most people really want to see, is the sailfin snapper, or the sea bream, as a lot of people know them. This is a really interesting fish. The bumpheads are every month. The red snappers are every month at the full moon, right around the full moon. So you have bumpheads at the new moon, red snappers at the full moon. The sailfin happen 2 weeks out of an entire year. It happens 1 week in March, 1 week in April. It's in the midweek, in between the full moon and new moon. It varies slightly every year, but it's in excess of 50,000 to upwards of 75,000 fish. Just to give you an idea how big the mass is, it will be 60 feet deep, and if it's going by you, it will take more than 2 minutes to go by you. There are 2 known locations for these in Palau. It happens for about a week, and we have had, probably of all of my years of diving and a lot of our guys diving, some of the best dives we've ever had in our life are on these sea breams. Just to give you an idea, last year, the mass hangs out a lot after, so the light can come up, the water clears a bit from all of the spawning in the water. And the cool thing is we'll have we've had upwards of 40 to 45 predatory sharks feeding on this mass at one time, and it is quite a spectacle and quite a sight to see. And again, the cool thing about most of this is it's all shallow. The spawning happens in about 10 meters of water, so you don't have to. We do require that you have an advanced certification to do these dives, but that is primarily because it's open. It's kind of off the reef a bit. There are a lot of currents because of the moon phases going on, and we just want to make sure that you're okay in the water, and you can handle it. Obviously, the next one that is very famous to Palau and a lot of people know about is Jellyfish Lake. 5 lakes in Palau with persistent golden jellyfish populations. This is a mastigious jellyfish. It is back. You'll hear a lot of people will ask. It did go away. We had an El Nino a few years ago, the one that affected the Great Barrier Reef. And unfortunately, we were fortunate enough that we didn't get any coral bleaching, but it did raise the lake temperatures in Jellyfish Lake, and it actually killed off all of the adult jellyfish. And those jellyfish, those jellyfish they stayed in a hibernative state, and the polyps that are on the bottom, I don't know how many of everybody's kind of familiar with how jellyfish operate, but the adults died off. The polyps stayed on the bottom of Jellyfish Lake in a hibernative state, and they basically stayed there, and they would do these tests, kind of a test release, to see as the water temperature rose back to its normal and the salinity came back to normal. It has now been back for about 1.5 years, and we are it's 6 to 8, maybe even short on the estimation now, maybe more like 8 to 10. It's back in full force, as you saw at the end of the video there. And it's just incredible. It's only a snorkeling lake. The lake is actually 100 feet deep. It's about 10,000 years old. It's quite a deep lake, but there's a sediment layer that stops oxygen, so we don't dive in the lake. It's an unbelievable experience for those of you that want to come out. Now I want to talk to you about something that's very near and dear to my heart and everybody at Sam's Tours and a lot of people joining me today. It's probably really for you guys as well. And that is, Palau has been leading away, and I want to ask you guys a question as we get into this next phase. What legacy, have you ever sat down and really thought about what legacy it is that you're leaving for your children, your grandkids, other people's children, your nieces and nephews? It's something that we have taken very seriously in Palau, and it started several years ago by taking a stand against the poaching of sharks. And on September 25th of 2009, President Tommy Rumingasau made a declaration at the United Nations that Palau would become the very first nation to declare all of its waters, all 230,000 square miles of its EEZ, a sanctuary for sharks in an effort to protect these amazing creatures that we love so much. This is why we look at it. We're in it every day. And Palau is one of these last gyms. It's one of these last places where people, it is as it is in the video, it is as it is in photos, it is the way it is. It's untouched, it's unspoiled. It doesn't have a huge amount of tourism there. We have about 100,000, 105,000 a year, and we're trying to keep it that way. And you have to ask yourself a couple questions that I'm going to get into in a minute. We were recognized for our efforts in June of 2012 by as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, our Southern Lagoon, which is the main area that people dive in. It is a highly protected area. There are parts of it that we don't take dive boats into because they're too fragile of an ecosystem, and we want to make sure that everything kind of stays the way it is. We came up and we wanted to go further. And it's been an ongoing thing between, SAMS has been vital, and we sit on the President's Economic Council as well. We are heavily involved, as are other dive centers and our other local businesses and things like this. We're all in this together. And what we finally have kind of changed the thinking on was that these ocean sanctuaries, they benefit not only the ecosystems, but they also benefit the people. And in the long run, we were in a position where, yes, there was fishing going on, and yes, there were other people taking the resources of Palau for many years. And we decided to move and make this thing just to lock it up so that it's a place that my niece and nephew, Jackson and Georgia, can come and visit in 20 years and it'll still be the same. So it really hits home. Palauans, interesting enough, we're practicing conservation before conservation was even a word. And back in the early days, thousands of years ago, it's about a 4,000-year-old culture. So about thousands of years ago, the high chiefs, of which there are two paramount high chiefs, one is called the Reklai and one is called the Ibadu. And they were able to put in a thing called a bull. And a bull would be a moratorium on anything. So they were adjusting what fish and what species they were using to feed themselves. If they saw a species that maybe the sizes were going down, or maybe there weren't as many fish, or they felt like the species was being pressured, the high chief would put a bull in, which basically said, no one is allowed to touch that fish at all, under the penalty of death. In many cases, they wouldn't mess around with it. So we took the traditional way, called it a bull, as we worked to produce the Palau National Marine Sanctuary. This was a big effort, and it was an effort that you have to really think about. People, when it all comes down to islands and it comes down to how we do things in these islands, it does come down to economics and financial resources. And having people, having the ability you have to prove to a government that we can do something in order to make it viable. They have people to employ. They have people they're the local people to make sure that they are looked after, to make sure that people are able to have jobs and all of these things. And it's a delicate balance. It's really a delicate balance that all islands face in all over the world. We had commercial fishing. We were receiving money off of commercial fishing. We were receiving money off of exporting fish. We were on other things like this. But the problem is that the taking of resources was beginning to outpace the ability for it to reproduce and come back and stay the way it was. And we noticed many years ago that the reefs were starting to get a bit pressured. President Tommy Ramingasau has been just an amazing man on this front. This is a little country going up against the likes of the big nations, the United States, which is the largest fishery in the world, if you will, China, Japan, Taiwan, all of these big countries around us that were using our resources at many, for their own goods. And Palau, quite frankly, was getting a nominal amount of money comparative to the resources being taken. There was a movement that was started many years before this October 15th timeline to try to get the government and try to get the Palauan people and the populace on board with making all of Palau a marine sanctuary. We were able to accomplish that in October of 2015. And Palau then became this world's 6th largest marine sanctuary. And the reason it's only the 6th largest marine sanctuary is we ran out of water to make a sanctuary. Had we had more area, we probably would have made all of it. Palauans are allowed to fish, and they are allowed to commercially fish for the hotels and for the on-island stuff. Nothing is allowed to be exported, and only a Palauan can own a commercial fish company. So it's not farmed out to anyone overseas anymore. So this is a view of the National Marine Sanctuary. So the little blurb that you see here, this is the islands part right here. And then you're going to see the domestic fishing zone, which means that we are allowed to fish in that 20%. And then the other 80% is off limits to anybody fishing at all with that. So we have locked it down. And this is a little country that basically pushed out all of the Asian countries, all of the US fisheries, everyone, and had to make tourism the way of the future for them. They have all of their GDP now, the main GDP driver is tourism. So it was a definite change. We decided to take it another step further, and how do we keep building for the future, and how do we make this legacy? And what the conversation evolved to was the children. Every day, we as adults make a choice. We make a choice to take our own shopping bag or use a plastic bag from the store. We make a choice on how much we drive, whether we use solar, how much electricity we use, what we do every single day. The problem is the kids that we have and don't have that choice necessarily. They're being handed something as they get older that wasn't their fault. And we have to ask ourselves every day as to what are we leaving for them? Like what are they going to deal with? What are they going to have left if we don't take care of this incredible place called Earth? And so in making Palau this amazing place and trying to go much deeper with this National Marine Sanctuary than just pushing out fishing companies, we wanted to put it on the tourists. And how do you police all of these people to make sure that they're not throwing down trash, that they're not throwing down plastic, they're not bringing plastic in, they're not using the wrong sunscreens, all of these things. We asked them to make a pledge, and Palau came up with the idea of the Palau Pledge. This is a picture of the pledge, as you can see on your screen. Palau is the very first country in the world that requires every visitor to the islands to sign a pledge to the children of Palau on a legal document that basically says you're going to respect and cherish and leave it the way, or leave it as good, if not better, than when you got there. So that the children of Palau have a place to call their own, and that they can actually still fish, they can still farm, they can still do all the things that make Palauans Palauans, and enjoy their country the way it is. And this is something that we all want to kind of get into. And so I ask you this question again: what legacy are all of you out there that are watching this going to leave? It's something that I hope when we get done with this that you'll think about over the next however long, and really try to put small things into practice. We all have to live, we all have to do certain things, but these aren't big things. And one of the things I want to put out about tourism and things like this is we are travelers. We go to places. We can spend our money wherever we want to spend our money. Should you not support countries that are trying to do the right thing? Palau is really trying to do the right thing. Whether you come to Sam's Tours, which we would love to have all of you, or you go somewhere else, countries that are trying to do the right thing by protecting their environments, by taking a stand, by doing things that are going to leave this planet, their particular countries, for the next generations and all these future generations. You have a choice where you spend your dollars. Palau basically has gone full stop into this. They have jumped in with both feet. You know, we hope that you guys will take this message, and we hope that other countries, we try to lead the way so that other countries will do it. And just so you know, as a little side note, Palau was the very first shark sanctuary. I believe now there's 28 or 30 different countries now that are proper shark sanctuaries as the whole, not just areas, but as a whole. We added one more part of this thing this past year, A lot of people probably saw it on about sunscreens and all this other stuff. The National Marine Sanctuary Act, which was enacted, also came into the Responsible Tourism Act that just got passed. And the Responsible Tourism Act is just an amazing thing. As of 2020, there are no supermarkets, stores, there's no plastic bags allowed to be brought into the island, no plastic, no single-use plastics allowed, straws, rubber bands, any of that stuff. We also banned 10 chemicals in sunscreens in an effort to try to protect the reefs. And so we keep adding on these things so that when you, the traveler, want to come out and see it, it is exactly as it is. It's an unspoiled, beautiful place to be. I want to show you a little video right now about the Palau Pledge so you can kind of get an idea what it's about. And then I'm going to come off and I'll answer a bunch. I'll get more one-on-one so you guys can see me, and we'll talk to some some questions. So hold on just a second. I'm going to play this video, and hopefully again I get it right the first time. So hold on just a second. Gary, can you hear that?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
good.
we can hear it.
Now, if you're heading to the Pacific island of Palau, you'll be signing up to a new pledge.
Human impact on Earth's environment is one of the biggest challenges facing the world today. The small island nation of Palau was feeling these impacts acutely. Tourists were damaging reefs, littering oceans and poaching protected species. But how could a small local population with limited resources police the high volume of visitors? What if we made the tourists police themselves? Introducing the Palau Pledge, a first-of-its-kind immigration policy for good. All visitors now need to sign an environmental pledge to gain admittance into Palau. Stamped into the passport of international arrivals, the pledge is a formal promise to Palau's children.
Children of Palau,
I take this pledge
to preserve and protect your beautiful and unique island home.
To implement this policy, government, the tourist industry and citizens were brought together. A new visa entry stamp was designed and issued in multiple languages. And immigration laws were permanently changed.
The joy that comes with the pledge is the recognition that, hey, I can make a difference.
But we didn't stop at the passport stamp. We redesigned the tourism experience via a website, an in-flight film, a passport insert, local education, business accreditation, signage, penalties, and collateral. Launched at the UN, the Palau Pledge has been praised by international leaders and groups. Influencers helped inspire people to take the pledge online in solidarity with Palau.
Are you already seeing tourists behaving differently?
The awareness level is very high.
Leonardo DiCaprio has been quick to endorse the pledge.
The reaction on social media has been widespread.
The Palau Pledge has raised global awareness of the responsibility this generation has to the next. But its biggest impact is local, in Palau.
I hope my children can see the beautiful place as I see today.
Guys, I want to thank everybody for listening to me talking, and I hope that it inspires some of you to try to make some differences in the life for the little ones. You know, it is the impact that we're having, and the ability to just change a small nation to lead a movement is something that that is very near and dear to all of us in the diving community. I really hope, like, look, you know, we're just a small little nation. We're trying to do it. Palau needs your support. And one of the things that I would like, as I was trying to say earlier, whether you choose to come to SAMS, and I hope you do, we work very, very hard to be the very best at what we do. Support of Palau is just incredible. And the only way that we keep these countries, and the only way that you keep these island nations to doing the right things is by supporting them when they're trying to, which means that the tourism dollars in Palau, if they can't make their money on that way, the chances of them reverting or going back increase, and we just don't want to have it. So thank you very, very much. I'm going to take some questions. I think Cheryl's going to jump on, and we'll kind of go back and forth. And Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Hi. Yeah. Hi. And anybody of the Deep Blue team, I've not been fortunate enough, I hate to admit it personally, to have made it to Palau yet. It's kind of on the list for October, and fingers crossed, but we'll see. But Terry and Christy have both been, so feel free to jump on, girls. And Carrie's here to help me because there are so many questions and comments, Mark. It's unreal. I will
try to get to
quick,
all of them.
Cheryl.
Huh?
Sorry. Real quick for everybody out there, we have been trying to keep up with your questions in the chat box, but there are just so many. So if you can find the raise your hand feature, or if you can retype your question into the Q&A so it's a little bit easier for us since we're running out of time to get to as many as we can, it would really be helpful if you could do one of those things so that we can just quickly feed them. And then Cheryl, as you're picking people, I will go and unmute them for you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And I do want to say, like, one thing with what Mark said is, I don't know about anybody else, but I pick my tourism dollars. I truly pick my tourism dollars where they go. Money talks. So where my money goes and where it doesn't go, a lot of the time is based purely on sustainable action. And I've been following Palau. We follow all our destinations, but I've been following Palau, and the proactivity and the stances that they've made is just unbelievable. In my mind, they're a world leader. So to me, eco, sustainability, everything should be something highly important to all of us, because otherwise what we love about being underwater is going to go away. But Palau is definitely, in my opinion, a world leader on this. So I'm going to go through, first of all, the two hands that have been very patiently waiting is Margaret Sterling. I'd like to put Margaret Sterling on first. I know Margaret, so I'm not paying favorites here. I just know her, and it's Peggy. So Peggy, if you're out there, I know you've been sitting for quite a while with your hand up. Do you want to chime in?
I've got her unmuted. She's got to do it on her side. If she's got a question in the Q&A, it might be that she doesn't have.
So Peggy, if you're new to Zoom, somewhere on there, if you move your cursor around, you'll see the option to unmute your mic. You're unmuted our end. Go ahead and do that, because we have so many questions. We're going to move on. Michelle Clark. Michelle Clark, I know you've also been sitting there with Margaret Sterling. Will you try and unmute your mic and ask Mark a question? Okay, so Michelle and Peggy, if you can't get your mics unmuted, because you are unmuted, please go ahead and go in the Q&A box. Again, move your cursor around. You'll find the Q&A and type your question in there, and we'll ask Mark for you. I'm going to move on to the Q&A box, Carrie. So
well, the rest of the people, before you do that, the rest of the people who have their hands up, they do show that their microphones are unmuted. So we've got David, Lily, Stephanie, and Gary. Should all be able to talk if you want to go to one of them real quick.
What I want to do is kind of go in order of people that I'd kind of asked to delay. So Lily, in your Q&A box, you asked me quite a while ago. If you want to go ahead, Lily, you're unmuted.
Sure, and I just want to say I'm really, really happy to hear about all the sustainability efforts. That's just fabulous. My question was on the spawning. What time of year does that happen?
Hi, Lily. First of all, hey, thanks for joining, and we really much appreciate your comments. The spawning actually happens year round. So the cool part about it is, so that for the red snapper and the bump heads, those happen every month. The red snappers will happen for the 4 days preceding the full moon, and the bump heads will happen for the 4 days preceding the new moon. The sea breams are the only one that's the off there. The interesting part is that they only come in for 1 week in the month of March and 1 week in the month of April. That's the midweek between the two moon phases. And then you will not see another sea bream in Palau the rest of the year. That's the odd part about it. We are starting to put tracking devices on them to try to find out where they go. We don't know where they go yet. So that's the next order of business. So, hey, thanks very much for your question and joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, David K., I'm trying to get to you, so hang in there for a minute. I'm trying to put you in there, but bear with me.
Okay.
Stephanie Rich. Oh, I'm sorry, David, you're up. So go ahead, David, and ask your question.
Yeah, I was wondering how you put together a trip. Where do flights come in from the U.S.? And I guess I didn't know, but I guess you're a dive center, but not a resort where you have rooms to stay in. So you have to pick a hotel, right?
Yeah, so the great thing is that you can do all of that, number one, through Deep Blue. They can get in. There are from the United States. It's quite it's not hard to get to Palau. It's quite easy. It's just long. That's the thing. It's just the flight times are long, but it's not difficult. You can come in via Guam to Tokyo, Incheon, Korea. You can come in through Taipei. Those are the general routes that people would come in. United flies all the way. China Airlines flies in and out. Asiana, Delta. So there's quite a number of U.S. operators. And then in terms of us, yes, we are. Derm, Sam, and I have got. We do have the land next door to build the hotel. We haven't. We're in the process of getting through that right now. We will be the first dive center in Palau that actually has their own place at some point. Right now, we book all of the hotels on the island, which is, in some ways, is actually a good thing too. I mean, we've looked at this a bunch of ways. I mean, you can choose whatever price range works for you. We have everything from budget to 5-star. So you can, it's kind of up to you, Dave, where you want to go. And Cheryl and the team, they book all of those hotels through us or with us directly. So it's not a problem. You wouldn't have to do the shopping yourself necessarily.
And are there any beaches there?
Yes, most of the beaches, though, in Koror, which is the main town, are all man-made because Palau's limestone, right? They're not volcanic sand beaches. Once you get down into the Rock Islands, which is one of the sayings in Palau, welcome to Koror, Palau's around the corner. Once you get out on the boat and you're down in the Rock Islands, there's beaches galore down there. In fact, all of our lunches, for the most part, that we do on dive days are at beaches or nearby to where the dive sites are. So you're eating lunch.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Appreciate it, David. Thank you.
Renee, if we could get Renee on, she's been waiting a while with her question. Let's see. Mark, you've had just such an amazing response here. We have to go through all the names to get everybody. It's fantastic.
I can answer questions. I have no problem.
All right, Renee, you're on our end. If you can unmute your mic, you're on with Mark.
She's got it. She should be
good.
Got
it, Renee.
Okay. Hey, yeah, my question was, with the World War II diving sites, are most of them around Palau? I actually took a World War II veteran who served on Palau on an honor flight, and I got to know him really well, and he served on Palau. And then I have a friend that's actually been diving to Palau twice. She says it's amazing. And their group chose not to dive the World War II sites because no one wanted to go to Palau, which I can't imagine. But could you just talk a little more about diving the World War II sites?
Yeah, not a problem. Well, first of all, Renee, thank you for joining today. Very much appreciated. And yeah, well, a couple things. Palau is more of the land-based World War II sites because that's where the Battle of Bloody Nose Ridge was fought there. For those of you who don't know, there was a major U.S. battle. It's quite an interesting battle as they came across in Palau. It was an area that they thought they would take in 7 days. It took them 76 days to clear the island. Mind you, that was after they literally flattened the island from the ships. This is where all the tunneling that you hear about from World War II with the Japanese, this is one of the areas. And so there's a lot of World War II relics from Zero fighter planes to the old guns in the limestone there. It's a remarkable place. They find new stuff every day as it washes up. It was an insane. We don't have enough time to go through the whole battle, but the wrecks are more towards Koror in terms of the diving side. Around Palau is quite deep, so there's a lot of it's very, very good diving, but it's not so much the wreck part. The wreck parts are going to be up closer to Koror, and the reason for that is that a lot of people know Truck Lagoon or Chuk. Chuk was the staging area. Palau was the headquarters for the Pacific Fleet for Japan. So Palau was actually the headquarters. Chuk was just a staging area, which is why when they first went there, they bombed those ships and sunk them right as they were in the lagoon there, which is why the wreck diving is so good there. In an effort to protect the headquarters, then they pulled all the boats back into Palauan waters and tried to hide them. And that's why we have 40 World War II wrecks. They were there. We have some very, very good wrecks in Palau. They're not as well known necessarily as we're not as well known as they are in Chuk, but we have great wrecks. I mean, they're all above 40 meters as well. And most of the really good ones are within a 10 to 15 minute boat ride from the dive center.
So you would, having like advanced diver would be enough, or do you have to have
Yeah.
dive?
Oh yeah, they're all 40 meters and above. They're all within recreational dive limits.
Okay.
But they're great for everybody. That's the thing about it. So the techie guys love to be on them because they can do some penetration. They can spend lots of time on the wreck because they're shallow. They don't have as much deco time. And then from a regular recreational standpoint, while you can't get in and do the penetrations on recreational scuba, you certainly can have a great time on these wrecks and spend a lot of time because they're relatively shallow.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I could ask you a million questions, but I know there's a lot of other ones. Have you yourself been on Palau, the island yourself, and walked
I've
around?
lived in Palau for a lot of years, and yes, and so
Okay.
yeah, I spent a lot of time in Palau. I love it. It's an app. Come out, see it. We do those tours we do them. They're available every day, provided we have enough people to go down. And you know, it's just it is exactly as it was. That whole place, by the way, is a national monument. So you can't, because you have U.S. and Japanese grave sites there, and all of these. You cannot take anything from it. You can't touch the bullet case or anything. So it's as it was 60, 70 years ago.
Okay. And I had two questions on there. I'll ask my second one real quick. If you had to pick the absolute best month to go diving in Palau, when is the absolute best?
I would say a period. Look, they're different because they range a little differently. The diving's excellent in Palau year round. We are seasonal. August and September, parts of July would be the kind of the lower point, and that's not because of the diving. It's because it is typhoon season in the Pacific, and even though Palau is below the typhoon belt, the wind can pick up. We don't get the typhoon, but we can get kind of rainy weather. That's not all the time. But the primo months are probably going to be, December through probably the end of April would be what they consider. Personally, May and June are the best time to be there because it's not as many people.
Okay. I like that too. What about the big mantas and seeing your 11 species of dolphins and the whales?
Well, the dolphins and the whales are going to be a little bit further out. There's research going on through one of the guys that's been with us. He runs our kayak side. He's a biologist. Ron Leidick is his name. He's doing some amazing work in Palau. It's not enough. We haven't gotten to a point yet where we can actually do it as a tour or take people to see them, because it's not. We want to make sure we can find them now and we're good, but we're still a little hit or miss. We're trying to perfect it. They're there. We just have to kind of get it to a point where we know we can get people to do it. In terms of the mantas they're there year round, but they do move. And so German Channel is the most famous area that people know about. That's going to be kind of that December to the end of April timeframe, right? Once in May, they start to move kind of up north a bit, and they're a bit more difficult to find. Doesn't mean we don't have them. It just means that we for example, my wife, her first dive at German Channel ever in her life, she had 17 mantas on the first dive. Wow. That's kind of you can just stop now and we're good. Yeah. So leave it where it is. So, but yeah, I mean, we can get you on them. It's just a little bit more hit or miss as you get into that May to kind of November area. They start picking up again in the middle of November.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering all my
questions. Renee, thank you for joining.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, guys, I am going to push this just a little bit more because there is so much interest, but I'm going to let Teresa, it's a little bit of a controversial question, but I think, the sustainability side of this is so important to everybody here, Mark, that I think it's a question. Let's get it out loud. And if you don't know, if you know, you do. And if you don't, you don't. And you know that we're digging into this stuff, honestly, because I know Mark personally, and I know how important this stuff is to him. So I'm going to put you on the spot. And if you can't answer it, we understand it, but we'll uncover it. I'm going to throw in at the same time that you answer, Teresa, if you could briefly cover the Blue Corner dive specialty. Guys, we're going to run just a couple of minutes late. What I am going to say to you is literally there are so many questions being powered at us. Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot and let you know that we're going to keep this event has just had so much an overwhelming response that we're going to keep going with social nights and all the rest of it. And I'm going to put you on the spot right now that we need you to be a speaker to come back that's dedicated just to you one evening, and we can just sit and keep you there all night long. So will you do that for us?
I am at 100%. I'd love to do it with you guys.
All right, so guys, I am so sorry for all the questions that are not getting answered, but we will get Mark as one of the first speakers for our socials. I do want to hear from you guys, best days and times. I know I can't please all the people all the time, but we will try, and everything will also be recorded. Maybe we'll have Mark back a couple of times. I don't know.
I'm happy.
Depending on time zones.
All right.
So anyway, what we want to do very briefly, Blue Corner.
Can I jump in really quick?
Sure.
I just want to let you know, I met my wife. The things started to happen with my wife and I in Palau many, many years ago. It will be a place in my heart forever. It was beautiful, lovely, and I could go on, but I'm going to let go because I know we're late out. But I met my wife there, and things started happening for us, and it was there's no place more special in the world.
Thank you very much, Gary. Congratulations, man. That's a good one. That that's tugging at the old heartstrings there.
It is. Forget the sustainability stuff. We got love going on.
Right.
So real quick, jump to the Blue Corner dive in just a second, but let's just tackle this. Teresa Long, and Teresa, your mic is on. I've read that there has been a proposal to rezone the Rock Islands and allow development of a Four Seasons resort supported by the president. What is the current status of that proposal? Do you know anything about that?
Well, yeah, two parts. One, I do know about it. It is there is immense pushback right now within the community. Who's all involved? Who's what the current status is? I don't. That part I can't answer. It was brought to the forefront, and there's been some ongoing things about it, and the reality, there was a huge amount of pushback on it from the local community. Oddly enough, Palauans, look, we all deal with things on a level with our governments that sometimes we kind of go, things happen and all of this stuff. I don't know the ins and outs in terms of who's all the background of it, but what I do know is that the Palauans themselves, the majority, obviously it's not all of them, but the majority, was heavy pushback in that regard. They don't want something down in the Rock Islands right now. There's other areas that they can go. It's look, the company coming in, if you're going to put a resort in somewhere, I mean, look, I'm not, because I'm not for it, but I appreciate them going for at least they're talking to somebody that has some clout to them, and I don't know what the responsibility level would be. I'm sure the UN, the UNESCO people also will have a say because of the rating and the things like that. It's an ongoing thing. It's just, it's been talked about, and it was kind of under the radar for a bit, and then it became public, and the response on the pushback has been quite refreshing to see. I mean, people were very vocal about the fact that we don't want this down there. How it ends up, that's a tough one. We're going to fight as hard as we can to keep the Rock Islands the way they are. I don't, there's no reason to put a hotel there in my estimation. There's plenty of other places to put them that would not impact the UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Thanks. Really, really quick, whether it's the Blue Corner specialty or what the Blue Corner is, just, can you summarize it?
Yeah. Look, Blue Corner has been voted the #1 dive site in the world many, many, many times. You saw it in the areas of the video at the beginning that had the 3 holes. That's called the Blue Holes. That is the northern side of the Blue Corner. Then it goes all the way down. At the very tip of the point, it is at 70 feet deep. It is still today one of the most exhilarating dives you can do. It can often have 300-400 sharks on it. It will have large schools of jacks, large schools of barracuda, large schools of reef fish. You could dive it every day of the week, and you will always have the residents, and then you will always have something that you didn't see before, whether it be a manta coming by, whale, dolphins, big stuff. It's all there. And the numbers of species of sharks that you can see, from silver tips, tigers, hammerheads, a lot of those come and go depending on what's going on. They're not the residents. The residents are going to be grays, black tips, white tips. It's just this amazing place. And that's where the reef hook, everybody hears about the reef hook in Palau. That's kind of the site that it was, you know, it was an ability to, because it's got a lot of movement in the water. Generally there's a lot of current, not all the time, but there's generally about a knot or so of current at the most of the time, and then it can go upwards of 4 knots. But because of that water movement and that upwelling, it's just this insane. And all the walls, you know, it's as far down as you can see, just completely encrusted with soft corals and sea fans. And we have 8 to 10 foot Gorgonian fans on those. So yeah, it's just insane. It's that one along with Oolong Channel. Oolong Channel is my favorite one personally, but that's a little bit more on the west side. So
thank you.
You're
Marc,
welcome.
we are out of time, and it went, I mean, personally speaking, it went so fast. I'm so mad we didn't schedule more time, but we are definitely going to have you back at least once, twice. You might end up being a permanent feature till this whole thing is over. But we will definitely meet again, guys, and we will keep you posted on that. A couple of things. Renee Raymakers, I haven't really seen your name before, and you were trying to ask a question, and I'm so sorry we didn't get to you because we have been trying to get to everyone. So Renee Raymakers, don't give up on us. Marc, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. A couple of things is people are very much united in how amazing the sustainability of this is. They want to know how they can help. If it's the 4 seasons fight, if it's, you know, continuing to protect the sustainability or applaud the sustainability of Palau. And obviously spending their tourism dollars is one thing, but speaking against development such as 4 seasons, they want to know it. You got 148 instant signatures right here.
Yeah.
Homework wise, we want to know what we can do to help, if there is anything we can do to help as that develops, or any similar situation. Also, there's a couple of people here want to know about disabled divers and things like that. So if you can share that information with us, and I will distribute it to the people here.
Well,
so thank you again, everybody. And I wanted to point out too that one of our amazing prize donors is Sam's Tour. So somebody having been here has got the chance to go and stay at Palau Royal Resort and go dive with Marc and his team for free. So thank you so much for that as well.
Well, you guys, everybody, thanks for joining today. And Cheryl, everybody at Deep Blue, Terry, Christy, everybody, Carrie, you guys, it's been a great, I think what you guys are doing is just amazing for the industry. We're all in this thing together. We're all fighting the same fight. And it's all of you people that joined today, which makes us love what we do.
Yes.
I've been in this industry a long time. And the people like yourselves and the questions, and we're all joined by a love of and passion of the oceans. But Cheryl, you and your team for putting this thing together, the innovative thought and the way that you're doing this is absolutely amazing. I speak all over the world, and I'm honored, and I'm proud to be a friend first and a partner. I love you guys, and you know, anything you need from me, you know, I'm always going to be there for you. So I'm happy to come back and do as many nights as you want with all these folks. I'd love to have a round table. That would be
absolutely, definitely. Absolutely.
I can have wine. Cheryl will probably tell you I have a love of wine. You know.
We'll turn video on next time. Hey guys, right before we jump off here and head over to Fiji, just so you know, if you didn't get your question answered, feel free to flood our box, info@deepblueadventures.com, and we'll either get back to you with those answers, share them in a newsletter, or we'll put a list together of what we need Marc to talk about next time for our social.
So, thank you guys.
Thank
Everybody,
you
be
so
safe.
much.
Be safe. Stay home.
Okay, thanks, Marc.
Bye, guys.
Bye.